In our global economy, what you see on the surface, it often hides a much more complex reality. Today, we're going to uncover 3 paradoxes that kind of expose the hidden rules of how our world really works. From mountains of brand new trash to an energy giant that's, believe it or not, always thirsty.
Okay, let's just dive right into our first puzzle. You might have seen this at any major port, these giant mountains of shipping containers, the massive steel boxes that power global trade, just sitting there. A lot of them are basically treated like garbage.
But this isn't just about waste. No, this is a massive, physical clue that our world's trade is fundamentally lopsided. It's a story told in stacks and stacks of steel.
So to understand why this happens, we have to start in China. In 2023 alone, China's trade surplus was over $823 billion. Now, what does that mean? It means they export vastly more than they import, sending out an absolute flood of containers packed with goods.
But here's where that imbalance really hits home. When all those containers arrive in the US, which is, a major consumer nation, there just isn't enough American stuff to export to send them all back full. It turns out only about 40% of them actually make the return trip with goods inside.
So the big question is, what happens to that other 60%? You'd probably think they just get shipped back empty, right? It seems logical, but the economics of global shipping, well, they tell a very different story.
And here it is, the crucial calculation. It costs about $3,000 to ship one empty container back across the Pacific. Meanwhile, it only costs a factory in China about $2,000 to build a brand new one from scratch. So if you're a shipping company, the choice is purely economic, and it's a total no-brainer.
So these perfectly good containers end up starting a second life here in America. They become cheap storage units, pop-up offices. Some people even build homes out of them. But this isn't just some quirky fact. It's a physical monument to a global trade imbalance. It really highlights the hidden environmental cost of just manufacturing disposable steel boxes, and it shows how fragile a system is when it relies on a one-way street.
Okay, so that was a physical paradox. Our next hidden rule is a bit more systemic. And it's one that baffles a lot of economists, the really strange case of America's oil.
This right here is the heart of the paradox. The United States produces more oil than any other country on Earth. Yep, more than Saudi Arabia, more than Russia. And yet, it's also the second biggest importer of oil. It's kind of like a farmer who grows the most wheat in the world, but still has to buy bread from all his neighbors. It turns out there are 3 hidden reasons this happens.
Let's break this puzzle down, piece by piece, and we're going to start with the chemistry of the oil itself.
So first up is chemistry. The oil that's booming in places like Texas is what's called a light, sweet crude. It's thin, it's easy to refine. But here's the thing. Most American refineries were built decades ago to process heavy, sour crude. That's a thicker, more sulfurous oil they were importing from places like Mexico and Venezuela. To refit all those old refineries would cost an estimated $200 billion. Ouch!
The second reason is all about logistics. America's own geography and infrastructure create these things called oil islands. You see, there are no major pipelines that connect the massive oil fields in Texas to the refineries on the east and west coasts. So a state like California, for example, is actually forced to import 70% of its oil by ship, simply because it can't get that domestic oil piped in efficiently.
And the final piece of this puzzle? It's a law that's a century old. The Jones Act was originally designed to make sure the U.S. had a strong merchant marine for national security. A really noble goal back in the day, but it's had some pretty serious unintended consequences.
So get this, because American-built ships and American crews are so much more expensive, shipping oil from a U.S. port in Texas to another U.S. port in, say, New York adds about $5 to every single barrel. So it's often cheaper for that New York refinery to just import foreign oil than to buy American. And this just complicates the whole idea of U.S. energy independence, right? It shows how old laws can force the world's biggest producer to still rely on foreign supply. It's wild.
All right, our first 2 hidden rules were all about economics and infrastructure. This one operates in the shadows of geopolitics. It's a story that seriously plays out like a thriller. How on earth does a heavily sanctioned nation get its hands on a fleet of American-made jets right under the world's nose?
Yeah, this wasn't a simple purchase. This was a multi-year, globe-spanning operation. Let's trace the journey. It all started in an Australian aircraft boneyard, where the jets were brought by a shell company. From there, they were moved through a whole series of fake companies and re-registrations. We're talking Madagascar to Cambodia.
each step designed to hide where they were really going. They even filed a fake flight plan to Kenya just to throw people off.
The critical moment, the real spy movie moment, came when they flew into Afghan airspace. There, where air traffic monitoring is pretty weak, they just turned off their transponders. They completely vanished from global radar, they changed course under a cloak of electronic silence, and secretly landed in Iran, where they reappeared as part of the Mahan Air Fleet. So you might be thinking, okay, now that the jets are part of Iran's civilian fleet, why can't America just ground them, stop them from flying? Well, the answer lies in a foundational law of international aviation.
It's called the Chicago Convention, and it's basically an agreement that makes sure civilian planes can fly freely all over the globe. Unless countries are officially at war with each other, they can't block another nation's civilian aircraft from their airspace. And that creates this powerful legal loophole that, you guessed it, protects Iran's newly acquired fleet.
And this creates a total stalemate. If a country decides to block Mahan Air, Iran can just retaliate by shutting down its own airspace, which happens to be a vital air corridor connecting Europe and the Middle East. This whole thing reveals how systems that were designed for global cooperation can actually be turned into shields by those trying to get around international rules. So, for now, the planes just keep flying.
So from disposable steel containers that show the true cost of a lopsided economy, to an energy-rich nation whose own laws make it dependent on foreign oil, all the way to phantom jets using international rules as a shield, these stories show that our world operates on these invisible systems that have powerful and often unintended consequences. And it makes you wonder, right? The real question is, what other hidden rules are shaping our reality right now?